I'm 7 years old. I get in the house, call out to my mum. She's doing the washing up. She turns to me and says, yes. I tell her that a boy in front of the house up the road he's just asked me, am I a blackie or a packie? My mum stopped the washing up, took off her yellow gloves, and kneeled down. Staring at the floor now, she looked sad, like she was already looking down at her son's grave. Then she lifted her head and looked me in the eye. She said, those are nasty words. She pointed into my chest and told me that if anyone said anything like this to me, I should tell them that I'm mixed race. That one of my parents is black and one of them is white, and that they should get over it. I've always felt confident in my own skin. Growing up, I repeatedly hear the word Paki. I'm not Pakistani or Asian. This is just the level of education that I was dealing with on the way to the park. I would later find out that my mum was called a nigger lover for having a child with a black Caribbean man. That nigger was my dad. To understand how systemic racism works, let me tell you something about his dad. My granddad. He was a serious man, always gentle with me and his other grandchildren. He and my nan left the Caribbean with university degrees, but ended up working for the Royal Mail and civil services here. Respectable jobs, man. They worked their whole adult lives in this country. They retired and moved back to the Caribbean. Then, Grandad got sick. They had to leave the Caribbean again. This time, they moved into a flat in Watford so he could get treatment under the NHS. After he died, my nan told me that he had a problem with alcohol his whole life, and this is what killed him and their retirement together. What about my nan, my grandmother? Well, her dad died when she was a toddler. He died fighting for the West Indian Regiment of the British Army. Take that in for a second. That's my great-grandfather, a Caribbean-born black man who died fighting for Great Britain, fighting for the same government in the same country that forced his own grandparents from Africa to the Caribbean to farm sugar. 16-hour days minimum in the blistering heat for zero wages until they died of exhaustion, treated worse than dogs, for sugar, so that it could be sold and some old rich white man could have bigger houses in the UK and never work a day in his life. That is slavery. When I see an old black man drunk on a high street, I see a less fortunate man than my granddad, but I still see him. When I see a mixed race kid chilling outside the offer license with his man them, I see a less fortunate me, but I still see me in him. When I see Mark Duggan, a drug dealer who was transporting an old rusty gun for a paycheck, shot whilst unarmed by trigger-happy police, I still see him. I see the older boys I once looked up to, the ones that didn't make it at football and ended up getting arrested before they even knew what a national insurance number was. I see how capitalism messes with everyone. But at the moment, I want you to see how systemic and historical racism is messing with black people. Not just my black people, not just those unlucky ones in that crazy place they call America, but everywhere. I want you to see me how my mum saw me when she had to kneel down on the floor that day to tell her son that he was black, that he was a target, and that he needed to be confident about it. Scared that one day she'd answer the door to someone telling her that those nasty names, they had led to something much, much worse happening to her black son. Like it did to Mazee Mohammed in Liverpool, Sheku Bayo in Scotland, Sarah Reid in Holloway, Rashawn Charles in Dalston, and the 12-year-old Shukri Abdi here in Manchester. A black Muslim girl who we're finding out today struggled to make friends at school. A black Muslim girl who was walked to a river to drown. A black Muslim girl accompanied by a group of kids she thought were her newest friends, 12-year-olds, in England. How can this happen if all lives matter? I'll tell you why. Because to so many people, their black lives did not. Because the communities they were in ignored racism. Because the communities they were in were full of teachers and parents and police that did not see colour, that were quick to tell you they like black music, quick to tell you that they had someone in their family who was black, quick to tell you any number of things, but when they actually saw racism in front of their own eyes, they turned the other cheek. They did nothing. They shut up. Or they didn't speak anywhere near loud enough. Ignoring racism, no matter how small, is violent. Ignoring racism by correcting people on how we should feel is violent. Ignoring racism by comparing it to America, by comparing it to other oppressed groups, is violent. Silence is violence. I want you to see us. I want you to see them. Whatever age we are, whatever sex, orientation, religion, nationality, shade, it's done now. I want you to see us. Support black people in every way you see, whether you're black yourself or not, because black lives do matter.